have an idea and I'm curious if this would be acceptable to you. I was going to create a podcast on this eclipse and just kind of the inner healing journey. And I feel that our session kind of like took us on that entire journey.
Yeah, I feel like we just went a really long way.
And I am wondering if you would be open to me sharing parts or all of this session on my podcast. And you can say no, and you can think about it too.
No, if it helps people, go for it.
Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be.
Hey Luminary, it's Leslie Tagorda, and today I wanted to share with you about this upcoming and oh so powerful total lunar eclipse in Taurus on Tuesday, November 8th. And it is a total lunar eclipse. For those of us in the States on the West Coast, you will be able to see it if you can get up early in the morning. Now, regardless if you can see it or not see it, you are certainly going to feel it. And you likely are already feeling it. The energies have been opened up since our new moon solar eclipse a couple of weeks ago. And really, this is an extension of our eclipse season that we had in the spring when we had the Taurus new moon and the Scorpio full moon. Well, regardless, eclipses are huge energies, huge shifts in energy, consciousness, and our connection to our highest selves, not to mention our ancestors. Like this is all at peak. And this eclipse is all that on steroids. Whew, lots of shifts happening. And I'm sure for you too, lots of shifts, lots of loss, lots of coming face to face with our fears. And there is a reason for that. As it happens, this morning I had a one on one session with a wonderful client and friend who has been working with me all year in mentorship and astrological guidance. She was sharing with me where she was stuck in developing curriculum for her program of over 30 members, 30 change makers. And this is when we got to talking about the big missing piece of the inner journey, that how no amount of strategies and how to's, philosophy, rationalizations, no matter what, that's not going to get people the results they desire if they don't face their fears. That's right. Remember in the last episode, I was talking about how there's this inner journey that it runs in parallel with our external journey where we need to heal. But oh my goodness, Mina's chart was being impacted not only by this eclipse with Saturn T-squaring the sun and the moon, bringing up her values and fears, but also Mars retrograding is transiting over her natal Chiron in Gemini, bringing her face to face with her core wounds around her smarts and her beliefs. As we work through our session, it was everything I wanted to share about the power of this eclipse to shatter shame and to let go of fear by doing one simple yet profound thing: acceptance. Accepting that we are scared of the unknown, scared of failure, terrified of being noticed or never being noticed. Accepting that we have uncomfortable feelings that hold us back from sharing our voice, creativity, and creating connections with others. All of this in this upcoming eclipse. And when we do this one radical acceptance work of our soft, tender, shameful parts that we hide from even ourselves, this red full moon conjunct Uranus in the North Node catapults us into revolutionizing the value of our emotions to connect to our highest potentials. Mina Raver graciously permitted me to share her one-on-one session with you. I know that her story will resonate with you this eclipse season and spark you to do the inner journey that is so necessary in your change-making work. Thank you, Mina, for allowing me to share your potent one-on-one session with the listeners here. Before we dive into this episode, I wanted to let you know that I'll be opening the doors to one-on-one mentorship with me in 2023. Spots, of course, are limited. I only have so much capacity, and I'll be sharing how to do that in my upcoming masterclass called Radiate that I'll be delivering for free, all new content on November 14th, 2022. So head on over to starpower.com/radiate to sign up for this free masterclass so you can activate the luminary leader within as I share with you 5 actionable keys to integrate astrology into your inner and outer journey. Full moon eclipses are like fully illuminating, and it's still because of all of the Scorpio energy. Scorpio always wants us to like let go, eliminate, dig deep, right? Because like I think that, and I know you know this because of just like your upbringing and coming into full realization and facing your fears, and even the way that you sit with your kids and you accept their emotions, and you let them have all of those feelings, right? Generally, us as a society, or us as like humans, adults, we're like, oh, we're going to rationalize or philosophize master our emotions, right? And we can't rationalize our emotions. We can't philosophize our emotions. We just have to accept them. And in that acceptance of them is how they can fall away.
So I have to say, in that whole thing, we use words like rationalize and master and all of these things, but what it really is sterilize. We're trying to sterilize a labor force to make them more pliable. And so when we're thinking about, or when I'm thinking about it, it's not whether or not we, rationalize or whatever else. It's whether or not we integrate all of these aspects, whether or not we're willing to be dirty little ecologies of our own.
Yes. Right. Like I shouldn't feel afraid. I shouldn't feel stuck. I shouldn't feel like I procrastinate. Right. And then so, yeah, I love that idea of like sterilizing or taking away all of the emotion. Right. But that's the thing about being a human and being embodied, is that our emotions are really like are part of us. And so, at the sun 16 degrees of Scorpio, the moon 16 degrees of Scorpio next to Uranus, right? Like we're already feeling like if Uranus is about to change and like revolutionize our emotions into our fullest potential and value, Taurus, and this Scorpio, right, is letting go of the things that hold us back from speaking, creating, and connecting. Almost all of those things that if we think about just like the root of what prevents us from speaking up, what prevents us from creating at our soul level, what prevents us from connecting at that deepest level, it's fear.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so now I have to tell you the curriculum that I'm writing right now. I'm teaching disruption and core belief challenging. I'm like writing the curriculum to teach people how to go through, challenge their core beliefs, figure out the historical bearings behind what they've learned, and use research for disruption.
So I love that, right? Yet what I hear, and I'm just going to poke a few holes in there.
Please.
It's still a lot of intellectualizing, rationalizing, and philosophizing.
Yeah, I know. And that's exactly, I think, where the agony is coming in.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I'm agonizing over this curriculum. I'm trying to teach disruption, right? I'm trying to teach people how to figure out their own disruptive patterns, how to identify themselves, how to resurface their nature, how to de-sterilize and re-dirtify their being.
Yeah.
But it's still all of the intellectual stuff. And maybe it's just because that's the part of building out this curriculum I'm outlining right now.
what if, right, we're doing this deep dive of beliefs, of stories to get to the root of the fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come from? How did it get embedded? Did it get embedded because of society, culture, education, family?
Exactly.
Right? And so you can lead them down that path, but once they discover, they're going to be like you, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you're struggling is, well, what next?
How to get to the human part of it.
Yeah.
And
What
it's
if
easy for me to do the like technical parts of here's how you figure it out. But yeah, structuring a framework for what's next, or better yet, teaching people how to figure out what's next, because there is no step-by-step process for that next part.
the idea, right? If we come back to this root thing that keeps us stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
This fear of unknown, of uncertainty. It's always easier to choose the known path,
Mm-hmm.
even if the known path keeps us stuck in this place of pain, of challenge, of not going where we want to go, right? So part of this ability to unearth fear, to get familiar with it, what you're doing by showing them all these different ways to challenge and dismantle their beliefs is you're showing them like, okay, so these are your knowns.
Mm-hmm.
Will you still keep on choosing these knowns because it's safe, even though it's like it's not where you want to be? Or despite the knowns, will you take a leap of faith and fear? Right? That still within that faith is embedded fear because you're
Mm-hmm.
jumping into the unknown. And then in that gap from the known to the unknown, it's what is that emotional charge? There's no right or wrong answer about that emotional charge, where it's fear of failure, shame, guilt, disappointment, whatever those emotions are. But it's not for us to pluck out those emotions. It's for us to come face to face and embrace those emotions. Indulge
Indulge
the
in
emotions.
emotion.
Maybe rationalizing and philosophizing to get to the root of where this emotion comes from, to name it, to understand it. Now,
To apply it
to
the
apply
way
it,
that to apply it. What's the word I'm looking for here? Because a lot of the things that we feel, we misattribute to, the things we think about the world, or the things that we've been taught, to the shoulds, right? I might have a fear of doing something, and when I apply that fear to a complementary should, say I'm afraid of signing up for a new class, I can easily apply that fear to time scarcity. But going deeper, the fear might be truly that if I learn these things, it will make it harder for me to access my actual knowing around these things, as an example.
maybe scarcity, right? Anytime we have this scarcity, this not enoughness, we can just flip it on the head and just be like, the root is I'm not enough.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
so what you're learning and what I feel like is being awakened right now in all of us, especially those of us that are in this thought leadership, is that we're seeing that strategies, how to's do not allow us to succeed and to lead and to get the
Mm-hmm.
results that we want. In order to for these strategies, like no amount of strategies are going to work until we do the inner journey and the inner leadership. And so this is that gap that you've discovered, that you found, you're leading them, like you're there on that inner journey. And now connecting that dot into the inner journey is that there is no magic pill that is going to make you not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
That deep emotional pain, that's what the Scorpio energy is. It doesn't want to just bring it up to the light. It wants to hold space for it. It wants to bring it to the light, because in the light, then we can see it for what it is. We can accept it. And in accepting it, it dismantles.
Right before this, I just wrote all my podcasts are essays, but I wrote a podcast about when I was a TERF. When I was like 13 and I first came across transgenderism, I was very against it. And I wrote about why and the internalization of trauma, because I'm non-binary, and in the 90s that was tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
And the abuse around that. So like right before this, I just wrote about, again, exactly what you're talking about, procrastinating, right? But this is,
there's no procrastinating either.
right.
We're dismantling procrastination.
Exactly. That is something I've got to get out of my head. But I'm writing this curriculum, and what keeps wanting to come up is exactly what you're talking about, is the actual dismantling version of that, right? It was the process of challenging why I was uncomfortable with transgenderism led me to realize that it was because I was defending my oppressor's definition of my gender, which is dumb.
Colonial and how mentality.
Right, exactly. How I had accepted an identity based on gender trauma to such a deep degree that I was willing to defend it at the expense of an opportunity. And now in finding that, then realized that trans women have built their identity of womanhood without those traumas, and therefore have a stronger concept of what it means to embody yourself and the gender aspect of your identity, right? So dismantling, just viewing, accepting, and the natural order of dismantling.
So as you were sharing your story of your anti-transness, right?
I swear to God, it was like a week when I was 13. It was not a long-term thing.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so embarrassed by it, but it's a story that has to be told.
Yeah, there's no shame in that, right? Because there's a realization that I was wrong about that. But I to reflect back, what I think you're saying about that is that this dismantling of like where that that protection was, right? Anytime we're like anti something, we're actually protecting ourselves from something, from some kind of hurt or pain. Right?
Exactly.
And then if we want to talk about what you learned, what you were protecting yourself from, right? Well, when we unravel it, and this is what you're doing with the deep dive around cultural stories, societal stories, dismantling around beliefs and mindset and all those things.
Laws.
All those things. And you're like, okay, well, I realize now there was a colonial mindset, right? Because if we think about the four things of fear is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So like in that place, you are fawning the oppressor from fear, like survival of your identity, because you were protecting yourself against being bullied, being harassed, because you were already in that place of that non-binary. But you were able to work through that in the span of a week, where you could like look back and go, oh, this is why I was doing that. I see how I was protecting myself, and I see how that was wrong. So now I see how I can choose to go a different way. Yeah.
And that's the energy that's coming through. Like at first I was like, why in the hell do I want to tell people out loud that I was a TERF once? But that's why, to showcase exactly the steps that you just laid out. That's exactly what's on here.
It's ownership. it's like drastic dismantling of mindset and belief set that you are able to change for the better, right? Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's shameful. And you can acknowledge those feelings, right? Like, I didn't want to share this story with you because I'm ashamed, because this is not what I believe now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guilty because this is the kind of behavior that I abhor in others,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
I was so disgusted with it, even as a
I'm
kid, that
disgusted.
it is. It's disgusting, and I couldn't sit with it. I couldn't even sit with it for a week. God, I'm gonna cry. But that's exactly it, right? And so we have a lot of people who are choosing to stick with it because they don't want to or don't know how to
Or they'll
until
make
their
up,
identity.
yeah, they'll make up some excuse around principle.
Principles are informed by the world that we accept. So even if it's your damn principles, you have got to look at that and where the stories that inform that principle came from.
Talking about redefining our principles,
Mm-hmm.
Mars retrograde in Gemini. So Gemini ruled by Mercury. So it's kind of like this idea of like almost like a Mercury retrograde, which lately I've been thinking of Mercury retrogrades as like really this time to like change our mindset, like challenge and dismantle our mindset. And you know, like I really love this kind of like pulling back the layers of all of our colonial mentality. And but for those of us who were brought up in colonized societies, like as a Filipino Jew, which is very scary to say right now with all the anti-Semitism around, right? This Mars retrograde is really asking us to re-energize, reprioritize, reaffirm our principles.
Mm-hmm.
Mars at its highest is an advocate. Mars in Gemini is an advocate using words, communication, writing, calls to action.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Mars going through your ninth house of belief is tracing back and giving you your purpose and vision. And really, it's not like it's like you're not like having to like tear it down and put it up. You're connecting these dots in your purpose and your vision with reprincipalizing. Yes, that's not even a word. Reprincipling your message, right? Ta-da! You have natal Chiron in Gemini. You have natal Mars. Mars in January, you know, from now to January is going to be going back all the way to 8 degrees of Gemini. Mars will be going back to 8 degrees of Gemini. So it's, you know, it already passed these ones when it was going forward. So when you had your Mars return, you're like, I have all this energy. I have this new conviction. Right? And I haven't seen you. So I'm like, did this really happen? And then Mars.
Oh, it really happened.
Mars on your natal Chiron, energizing old wounds, old belief sets, old thought sets. I would guess it was a couple of weeks ago when you remembered this story about being a tomboy, people not understanding you, you not understanding you not feeling that I don't even know my beliefs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Is it safe to believe what I believe? Is it safe to be understood and heard? Right? So Mars already went past it once, opening up the Pandora's box of the things that are going to get re-energized, reprincipalized. What this new paradigm and what this freaking eclipse is showing us is to say, okay, I am ashamed. I should have caught that. What does it feel like to not be smart enough? Right? Without any purpose except to fully feel. What does that feel like when you just have permission to just feel disappointed, to feel a little bit shameful?
What's funny is as soon as I am okay with that or acknowledge it, I immediately get excited.
It goes away.
It goes away. I immediately get excited. Like, I didn't know that. oh, I feel really bad. Or shit, there's a whole wide world of information about that. Go get it.
Like our rational mind, our societal mind, our colonized mind is saying, we got to work hard and find the strategies to overcome and dismantle our fears. We just have to define and acknowledge them, accept them, be aware of them, and say, okay, I feel that way right now, and it's okay. It's okay to feel disappointed right now in myself. The other thing with the eclipse, right? So notice this big red triangle. This is called a T-square. So T-square happens when there is opposition, except this time we have the North Node and Uranus joining the moon. So like extra like quantum leap into our future. And then we have the sun conjunct Venus and Mercury and the South Node. We have like this like huge opposition in the sky on top of the eclipse. Like it is like so many energies are like piled up facing off with each other. When we have these face-offs, we're asking to make a choice, a commitment. We're seeing in full illumination what we have. Now, when we have a T-square, a pivot point, that is refereeing. Who is right here? Is the moon Uranus going to win? Emotional quantum leaps or emotional revolution? That's for our highest potential. That's this Taurus camp. Or is it this Scorpio camp, this coming face to face, all the things that block us from sharing our voice, creation, and attraction, getting stuck in past patterns of shame? I think Scorpio's deepest fear is shame.
I can feel that right now. Like all of the stories I've been writing up are things that I've kept secret because of shame.
Yeah. And then we have Saturn, not retrograde anymore, moving forward at 18 degrees of Aquarius. So we have a fixed T-square. This is like peanut brittle. It is ready to crack. It is strong, but it is not solid, right? You know, peanut brittle, when you have that candy, it's like it can crack your teeth, but once it cracks, it just shatters. This is shatter energy. The shadow side of Saturn, societal constructs, corporations, governments, institutionalized. At its highest, Saturn is inner authority, inner responsibility, inner commitment. So Saturn here is playing the referee, and Saturn is saying, okay, it's time to get to what's the expertise already in your bones, to dismantle shame, bring it to the surface, to bring it to light so it allows it to just, yeah, we all have shame. What are the parts of you that we just don't want others to see? And then this Taurus energy here, revolutionizing our emotions for our highest potential and worthiness. Lots of things are coming through right now, but lots of things have to die. Earlier, all of the energy, or what I was mentioning about missing the gaps in your curriculum, right? Like, where am I going with this curriculum around accepting and analyzing those painful places? Come from a parenting book I just read. How to talk to your children so they will listen, and how to listen to your children so they'll talk. Really, the key at the very end, I just finished the book today, was like, she's like, all these parents come in wanting all these strategies and they want to get to the meat of everything. And I tell them right at the very beginning, it's like really simply accepting your child's emotions. And she gives us all these tools and strategies. And by the end of the 6 weeks, she's like, the parents are just always amazed that first they don't believe that accepting emotions is the game changer. And at the end of the course or the book, after they've practiced these things for weeks, and it's still about accepting these emotions. And I was just like, I've been noticing this in my clients as well, because I'm kind of on that same journey as you with doing all the Chiron work right now, and watching some of my clients who, like you, just like take a leap of action, right? You're doing the thing, you're like, you know, like you're coming to me for a little bit of guidance, a little bit of bumpers, but we're not having to do these massive things for you to take that next jump. Where some of my clients, we go through all of these different frameworks, we spell out their brands, we come up with all of these wonderful ideas, we name things, we build them the website, and there's a failure to launch. And I'm like, what is that? Right? I mean, I know it's fear, but where does that fear come in? Because I know that when a client leaves my sessions, they're very inspired and activated, right? But there's a gap. And I'm like, And this is when my readings over the last year have really shifted into like healing and acknowledging these soft spots. I'm like, oh, why did we talk about the moon for like 90 minutes to unearth like these different ways that we are not able to nourish ourselves, or our caretakers modeled that it wasn't safe for us to be nourished? What does Chiron say about our core wounds and how we're supposed to alchemize that? And that's the missing piece. You found it too. I know we have to reinvent these stories for modern times. And I know you're doing that. I know I'm doing that, right? Because we are waking up these latent revolutionaries. And, I think recently, as I've been kind of redefining my brand and evolving my brand, because it has
you have.
Yeah. And that is like, what is a change maker? Because like, I know that there are people in there that they have to disrupt, right? They can't fit in the traditional conventional norms. And then instead they just like feel that they suck because they don't fit in. That is a change maker. Who's working from the inside out. Your visual brand, Libra, Cancer, right? That softness, that beauty, that bridge building needs to come through. And yeah, let's talk about this procrastination. This is also something else, right? There's no such thing as procrastination. If we're procrastinating, why are we procrastinating? Well, we don't want to do it. Why don't we want to do it? Is it we don't want to do it because it's like it doesn't have any meaning, or does it feel like a waste of time? Like, but in our work, in our chosen passion, in our field where we're the bosses, if we're procrastinating on something, there's something that's misaligned.
Now I'm questioning, am I procrastinating or am I balancing? Because now that I think about it, I'm writing out the curriculum, which I'm loving. I'm going back over my books, which I'm loving. But what I'm calling procrastinating is art expression, the living being versions of the curriculum that I'm building out. So it's not even separate.
Yeah, we have like death to the shoulds, right?
Death to the shoulds.
Because the should is telling us that we're procrastinating, yet you're not really procrastinating because you're creating other beautiful things that need to come through right now.
Yeah, it's not even procrastinating.
It's not procrastinating.
I don't even know why I called it that. It's really not.
Well, because colonial mentality. That capitalism has embedded procrastination because people of like creating efficiency on the job line. If people are not doing what they should be doing, then that's holding back the productivity. But when you work for yourself, why can't we go where we need to be going?
Isn't it funny? Like, I broke down my old business and I rebuilt this specifically to be able to do this specific thing. This right here, to be able to switch off what I'm working on as I feel like it, because I channel and what wants to come through is different all the time. And I have very little control over that.
Yeah.
To do my best work, I have to have space and a lot of liberty. And I'm actually admonishing myself for soaking up the life I've built for myself. Thank you for exposing that.
Isn't that funny? We all do that. I'm just holding up a mirror. I do it too. We're just like bringing visibility to it. This eclipse is really asking you to come to unearth all the shame around your worthiness and your values, and to sit with them and just say, okay, let's acknowledge these feelings. Yeah, it sounds like a Chiron wound to me, right? Because Mars is so close to Chiron right now, your natal Chiron. And Mars is going to be dancing with your natal Mars and your natal Chiron. And so Mars is basically reactivating your Chiron wound at the moment. And then also natal Chiron, transiting Chiron is right in between your Mercury and your Sun. And so the Chiron story, right, is he's called the wounded healer because ultimately he's able to heal in others what he cannot heal in himself. But what he really means in our natal chart, and we all have Chiron, and obviously your Chiron is really important because Chiron is closest to your midheaven. It's like anytime we have a planet that's near one of our angles, they have extra duty, right?
Yay.
Because it's so visible in your chart, it's like part of your expertise, part of your story. Okay. Chiron, he had his original wound was betrayal and abandonment from his mother. Chiron was a product of sexual assault, and he was half horse and half human because his dad is actually Saturn right there. So Chiron in your natal chart is really opposing Saturn. And so Chiron, you can't make this shit up. We need to know the mythology. We know, and we get to reinvent it for modern narratives so that we don't get succumbed by patriarchy and capitalism and imperialism. Right?
It is requesting attention from me how much of the story you're telling me actually aligns with the story of my being brought into the world.
Yes.
And also having that, like, have you on the phone. Why don't we talk about this? I will be quiet.
No. So this Chiron, because Mars is reactivating, it's re-energizing your old wounds, your old stories, right? This is super, super important, right? So first wound, Chiron, mother leaves him. Second wound, he's half man, half horse, or he's immortal because his dad is Saturn. And he has this inner polarity of like, am I an animal or am I a spiritual being, right? All of us have this duality. Third wound, he was already a trained herbalist, botanist, astrologer, musician. Apollo took him under his arms. Apollo and Artemis taught him all of his healing arts, taught him archery. He was getting his bow and he was dipping it into the poison of Hydra. There's two different stories of how he actually hurts himself, but this is his main story that people know him for, is that this poison arrow with Hydra, the scorpion's poisoned arrow, gashes him in his left foot. Because he's immortal, he cannot die. Yet this pain is like beyond anything. So he's running around with this painful, like festering, like wound that he cannot heal himself. And he's going even more, traveling around the world, looking for all the ways to heal his wound that he can never heal, right? But because he's picked up so many different healing modalities, people keep on coming to him so that he can heal them because he's able to heal others. Okay, so Chiron represents the drama triangle. You've heard of the drama triangle of the perpetrator, the victim, and the martyr, right? And we can get stuck in fighting or always being the victim and blaming others, or running around saving everybody instead of like actually like doing our own inner work, right? The highest element of Chiron, which we are doing, is you're jumping out of the drama triangle to become the wounded healer. What this means is you are learning at this point, because Mars is energizing your Chiron wounds, everything that you've learned to overcome, accommodate, and exceed your primal wounds of abandonment, of being taken away your smarts, or like not being able to express truly how you wanted your smarts and your beliefs and your thoughts and your intellect. All of those things, all of those dots that you have, just like your research, your acrobatics and your intellect, your out of this world ideas and ideals that you have gained because of your core wounds, that is where your personal value and wisdom lies. Okay, so that is being energized right now. I want you to get curious with all of the things that you have learned to accommodate and exceed in those places of mindset, intellect, beliefs, thoughts, and how the story of you is a replication of that core signature wound. This is painful, deep work. And this eclipse is asking you to do this now.
It has. I mean, it has to be done. It's entirely too embedded in my, not my identity, but my nature.
Yeah, it is in your identity. It's in your reputation. It's in your ultimate mission. It's in your purpose. It's in your vision. It's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. But that's the beauty of Chiron, because when we are able to alchemize Chiron in our work, Chiron amplifies our value. It's not your accomplishments, it's how you got to your accomplishments that is what's valuable. And it shows others that desire to work with you, to partner with you, to collaborate with you, to seek your guidance. It shows them that you're the right person, because they too have gone through similar things.
That's actually really powerful. This year, I haven't had any one-on-ones because I either attracted the wrong people, or the people I wanted to work with chose someone else.
Did you share these stories of how you came to your research, your knowledge, your wisdom?
No.
I wonder what would have changed if you had shared them.
That's what I'm wondering too.
Yeah.
And I hear over and over, I mean, multiple of these people have come back to me and apologized because they wasted this money with other people. But they wasted money with other people most consistently because they assumed that they knew more. They were intrigued by my information, but they didn't know enough about me ultimately, or how I found this information and how that process was going to better them to make the investment.
Chiron and Gemini, facing off with Saturn. So they didn't waste, yes, they wasted money, but they did gain something from that money that they invested. They gained full recognition that you're the expert. And now it's just going to cost them a little bit more money, but they can still tap into your wisdom. Right? That money is never wasted, right? Just like that procrastination, right? Like we can blame coaches for all of these things. It's never wasted. We learned something about that we needed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, eclipse season, the veil is down right now. Right?
Yeah.
So do know that you're in the right place at the right time. These places of fear, these places of the core wounds that are coming through, they are coming through right now because they want to be acknowledged. Every time that you were scared to use your voice, scared to create, scared to connect, scared to share your value, which is your supreme intellect, your ideas and your ideals, right? All of the fears and the uncertainty is coming up to be examined, to be brought to light, to be accepted, acknowledged. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Mina, for sharing your story and our work together. If you are interested in learning more about Mina's change making work, head over to her site, the number two, kdaysproject.com. The number two, KDAYSPROJECT.com. Mina Raver is a change maker with her Aries sun and so much Aries energy. I have a nickname for her. I call her the fire starter. But her Libra rising has learned to hold and create peace. She believes that every inorganic system that choreographs our lives is the product of an idea of that as change makers, all we have to do is figure out how to systemize the alternative so that we have the power to change the world. So make sure you follow Mina at 2kdaysproject.com. All right, everybody, I'm really looking forward to the next episode. In the next episode, I'll be sharing how to become a star-powered luminary and what it means to be a luminary and why it's so important for you to step into that role. This will be sometime after the eclipse, which is really perfect because this eclipse is shattering all the ways that prevent you from stepping into this power. So be sure to listen to the next episode, Becoming a Star-Powered Luminary, coming up next week. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.